Oh, we're started. We're on.
every time I hit go,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it worked!
Oh, we're here.
Ah!
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it wasn't gonna.
Cool. Wonderful. Welcome. Well, I have one of my favorite people in the health and wellness realm here within Calgary. Or is it in the world?
Wow. Domination has started.
Right, absolutely. Well, you are. So this is Luka Symons, and she is getting herself out into the world. There's just a quick little side. We're going to have a fun little conversation here. We're going to talk about fermented foods, but before we do, because it came up, your world domination, Luka used to do a lot of one-on-one clients, has built up a huge amount of knowledge and practical experience that way, and now she's channeling all that online.
Yep.
Yeah.
The new program launches on Tuesday. It's about making your kitchen your number one ally. So it's just real food. It's just how to get into the habit of getting real food on the table. What does that mean and what does it look like? And then some practical tips at the end on how to do it.
Awesome.
It's fun.
Cool. I love your phrase, JERF, just eat real food.
Right? So you can feel real good.
Yes, absolutely.
I just woke up the neighborhood, sorry.
It's all good. Hello, we got Kyla on this morning. We got a few folks joining us here on Facebook. This is going to be recorded. We'll post it on Instagram. We'll have it on YouTube. And even if you might be watching the replay, feel free to get interactive, post comments, questions, everything down below. Give us a hello just like Kyla did as well. Love to engage with you. And we're going to be talking about this topic, this subject, fermented foods, probiotics, which is, of course, ferments are the best source of your probiotics. And, you know, every once in a while, someone is told, or they believe, or they have an experience, they're like, oh, no, ferments is not for me.
Yeah.
Luka is here to tell you otherwise. Ferments are for every single person on this planet. If you don't eat ferments... Eventually. Yeah, caveat. So that's going to be our conversation. How do you get there if you've had a negative reaction? If you've been told, oh, no, your condition says otherwise... what's the steps with the path? Maybe just kind of map out for us. Why might someone have the belief? And you guys let us know too. If you're watching and you're like, no, I can't do ferments. I tried this. This is what happened. Let's kind of lay the kind of landscape there, and then we'll move forward. How do we get to that eventually?
Okay. P.S. If you're starting ferments, go slow. That is all I have to say on that. Because if you sit down and you think that, oh, well, ferments are really great for me, therefore I should eat a whole cow. You're probably going to run into troubles if that's the first time you're consuming ferments. And if you don't run into troubles, then you're Superman, so it could work.
Yeah, it may take a while to get to Denis Manzer heroic style, epic portions of ferments. I mean, he'll sit down and eat a giant bowl of them, and he's good.
It took me a long time, but I am there. And I had troubles with ferments at the get-go.
Right.
So I was the person who, this would have been about 5 years ago, I have a long list of things that have just sort of added up over the years of, 12 years old, 14, 16, 18, 27, like all these diagnoses along the way that point to having troubles at the gut level.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into nutrition and bone broth and ferments, bone broth ferments, bone broth ferments. And that's everything that everybody was talking about. And so I was like, okay, then I will. Yeah. Then I did. And in the process, I lost some pants. I mean, I joked about it last year at the conference, but at the time, it was not a joking matter, especially because there was an ambulance that was called and the attendant was very easy on my eyes. And, when you smell like a toilet, it's a little disconcerting. But anyway, that's fine. I'm married. I'm not dead. Yeah. Anyway, what has happened is in that moment when I was handling ferments, when I was starting to introduce ferments, when I was introducing bone broth as well, what I've discovered through research and through talking to other practitioners and getting to understand, as we dive deeper and deeper into the science of what's happening with the gut, how the gut can talk to us and let us know what's going on, when ferments or bone broth can trigger things to be worse, if your symptoms get worse. So I struggled with migraines. When I would eat ferments, I would have not just one migraine a month, but maybe 4.
Whoa, yikes.
When I started introducing ferments, my first one was kimchi, my second one was water kefir. And when I got to water kefir, and it's something that I still make, in fact, I was just making it before I came over this morning.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Water kefir is a fermented beverage that has grains, scobies, that do the fermentation. I've got them in my hand. Can you see them? They look like little pieces of popcorn, and they transform the sugars that you provide in the brew that you're making, and then convert those sugars into simpler sugars, and in so doing, then dropping off some of the probiotics. And that's what you consume when you're drinking the water kefir. Well, it took me about 4 months to be able to drink just 1 cup over the course of a day.
Right.
First time I tasted it, I thought, this is delicious. And that's the beautiful part of ferments. Like, you always talk about flavor. That's why you remind me of this all the time.
Totally.
Chase flavor, like go for flavor. We ferment, we make food for flavor. Flavor is part of the joy of food and the chasing of food. So when I first had water kefir, I thought, this is amazing. If 1 tablespoon is good, then 17 must be even better.
Right?
Oops.
Yeah, no, not always the case.
I was chained to the toilet, and the gurgles in the stomach would go, and it was really quite disconcerting for anybody who had to share a room with me. The first time that I tried it. And so I did some research and learned about the Herxheimer reaction, learned a little bit more about what's happening in the body when these kinds of symptoms show up. And it's not that you can't necessarily handle ferments, it's because you probably have overdone it. And you've overdone it, and that impacts you on a couple of different levels. So, to take 4 months to build on a day-to-day basis, to be able to build up to being able to consume a whole cup over the course of a day. Even at 2 cups, this is 5 years later, 4 years later, I'm doing 2 cups a day, and that still wreaks a little bit of havoc.
You know your threshold, eh?
I do,
Yeah.
and 2 cups really needs to be spread over more than 10 minutes. I can't consume it in 10 minutes. And that's okay. When you get these rumbles, or when you get diarrhea, or when you get migraines, or if your acid reflux gets worse, or if chronic pain starts to increase a bit, or if eczema or psoriasis or anything, if you're struggling with a health concern of sorts, if it starts to get worse when you're introducing ferments, a lot of people will be like, oh no, that's bad, I can't handle it.
Right.
I would like to present an alternative to that. I think it's telling us, bang, we've hit the probiotic strain that is going to shift things for you. Way to go. Good work, good detective work.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's a really nice indicator to understand that, water kefir is actually really good for me. However, whole cup in 10 minutes is too much.
Yeah.
Because what happens is the food is a probiotic, right? There's lots of bugs that are available in it. What was yesterday you guys were talking about it? 1 tablespoon has how much?
Oh,
8?
Yeah, 8 capsules.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So 1 tablespoon of a fermented food can have up to 8 capsules of probiotics.
Trillions of bacteria, right? And then we have to understand we're coming from a culture, even though you hear, humans have consumed fermented foods, every culture around the world for thousands of years. Well, our culture hasn't, right? Our modern culture, and it's the reason why we have a lot of these, chronic diseases, acute conditions that keep coming up, flaring up. So, we need to kind of slowly adjust.
Yeah. And we do so you say we don't have ferments, and you're right, it's new to a lot of people who are currently alive.
Yeah.
But I tell you, every population in every corner of the planet has a history of fermentation. And the people that you came from, if you go back 3, 4, sometimes 5 generations, that's when they were consuming ferments. And we haven't. We've kind of missed a couple of generations, and now we're rediscovering there's a revival movement, which is so brilliant, which is a big part of what Light Cellar's about.
And the Calgary Fermentation Festival. Our goal, our motto is culture the city, right? We want to spread the hope, we want to inoculate the city with this good culture, this good bacteria.
Yeah. But to understand that there's so many people who then immediately say, well, I can't handle that. It's actually an indication, if you're having some type of reaction when you do introduce a ferment, it's an indication that you have the right strain of probiotic that will shift things. It's inducing a shift in the microbiome at that gut level, which is so great. But you don't want to shift it too quickly, because when you eat too much too quickly, you shift that ratio too much. And that can slow down the work that needs to happen at the gut level. Now, further to this, there's another piece to this where if you have something called histamine troubles, histamine intolerance, mast cell activation, there's a lot of things that are happening in the body biochemically when there's a histamine problem of sorts. And there's a couple of different ones, and I can't diagnose and I don't want to diagnose, but one of the issues with ferments is, depending on how the ferment is prepared and made, If it's done anaerobically where it doesn't have access to air, and if it's fermented for 6 weeks or more, it tends to have a lower histamine count in the final product. Mm-hmm. When something is fermented to open air and a shorter ferment time, the histamine count in it is actually higher.
Right. And
part of what's happening in the current day and age is we have a lot of inflammation at that gut level, and that inflammation is contributing to the cells, like, your intestinal lining is only one cell thick.
Yeah.
And this leaky gut thing that's happening is influencing those cells to come apart a little bit. And those cells, one of their jobs is to produce an enzyme called DAO, diamine oxidase. And this enzyme breaks down histamines coming in through foods. So for some people, when they start to introduce ferments, then that adds to their histamine bucket, and it's like the rain barrel fills up and then it overflows, and then you have hives and itchy eyes and migraines increase and what have you. Then you've made it downpour in the rain barrel. Yeah. So for somebody who comes to see me to work with me, then we do a little bit of research to figure out is there a histamine component. If so, when we get to the fermented foods part of introducing ferments for you, we're going to go very, very slow. And in fact, you're going to start at just brine. We're going to do some more gut repair pieces so that you can better tolerate ferments. Because it's funny, at the root of histamine troubles is inflammation. But then you look at other foods that help reduce inflammation, and they're high histamines.
Yeah.
So it contributes to the picture. So it's really, I usually share with clients, so you do step 1 through 10 to get out of the tunnel of inflammation.
Right.
But if you have a side road of histamines, instead of doing 1 through 10, that can sometimes send you deeper into histamines. We do step 3C and then step 4B and subset A, and then you sort of have to inch your way out. And for some people who are really super compromised, we actually don't start with ferments, but we start with a therapeutic probiotic that is directly aimed at actually helping the cells of the intestinal lining come together.
Cool.
But eventually, the goal is everyone should be able to consume ferments.
Cool.
And if you are new and you're like, I don't want to come to the festival, I also don't want to go pay someone to go see them, then start slow. And by slow, start with just brine. And start with, I had probably one of my most compromised clients. She had 1 drop in 3 liters of water.
Wow.
That she had to shake up and take 3 days to consume. And she could tolerate that.
Wow.
It's almost homeopathic.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, post your comments, your questions down below. I've got a couple in my mind I'm going to shoot at you here.
Okay.
So a couple of things I heard were, and just to clarify, so I love this idea, if you start to get some reactions, Luka's saying, ooh, you hit on a probiotic where some healing is happening. Now what happens if you don't have any reactions? Just to call that one out. You're good. You're still getting benefits, right?
Totally.
Yeah. It's not like, I got to keep trying ferments until I get a reaction, a negative one, and then I'm on track. It's
good point.
It's
good
only
question.
if that happens for you, right?
No, ferments, if you're not getting a reaction, then you've probably already done a lot of work to do some gut repair and to support a better microbiome balance. In which case, really fermented foods is something you want to work towards having every day. And if you get to be to Denny Manzer status, then you can have 2 cups in a sitting. And I am there.
Awesome.
It took me a long time. Well, okay, water kefir is the only one I can, but
right.
There's different types of bacteria and different ferments. So some may make you feel a little irksome more than others. The ones that give you a bit of a reaction are those. But if you are not reacting to any, you can absolutely continue to consume ferments, and a variety is the key because there's more probiotic variety in the more types you make. And also, the cabbage from Alberta will be very different probiotics in the end result than a cabbage that came from California, say.
Yeah.
Because you're culturing the bacteria that was in the soil. So, have at her. And on the subject of sourcing local stuff helps to really cultivate those bacteria that have learned to survive and thrive in this environment. And when you consume them, you are then imparting that on yourself.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's why, all of our ferments downstairs at Let's Hiller, we only use, I don't think we've ever fermented anything other than, the base, local cabbage, local, any type of produce. I mean, ginger we'll bring in for flavors. There's always, the exotics and the erotics, like I say, that will kind of add as a flavor. But, the main base is, and I think it's what makes it so fantastic on so many levels. Yeah.
Even the stuff that we can't study, like, do we need a scientific study to tell us it's awesome? You can if you need it, but also, is it good for you? Yeah.
Taste it, experience it. Yeah.
Chase the flavor.
Okay, so one other quick question there. So you had been mentioning about if something is fermented longer, the 6 to 8 weeks or more in an anaerobic environment, so without oxygen, it's going to be a lower histamine level.
Mm-hmm.
If something's fermented aerobically in a shorter duration, tends to have higher histamines. Now, does that apply to, the same food? So for instance, sauerkraut, if it's gone longer, you're going to find less levels, or in general across ferments. So water kefir is fermented short duration aerobically. Is that a distinction there as well?
Yeah, so you will have more, it's a general distinction, yes.
Yeah.
You will tend to have more histamines in the end product. Now, there's also different strains of probiotics. Mm-hmm. So, water kefir has, I want to say 15, I can't remember. Milk kefir, if you do it with the milk kefir grains that look like brains, they're so great. If you and if you have some, try it with whipping cream, by the way. Your life will change.
Oh, really?
Oh my god, can't c'est pas de longueur. But the milk kefir grain has anywhere from 50 to 70 different strains of probiotics.
Yeah.
And, something like a sauerkraut will have 10 to 12, somewhere in that range. So there are some specific types of strains, some specific, a very specific bacteria. There's a few of them that tend to produce histamines as well.
Yeah.
So they will add to the histamine count. So whatever strains are in water kefir tend to actually produce more histamines than a cabbage or a soil-based ferment.
Right, okay, interesting.
So it's partially a short-term time, but it's also the strains of bacteria that are in the actual ferment itself. Right. And when you go to something like, kombucha, water kefir, milk kefir, they have, you're inoculating with something.
Right.
You're not just letting it go wild to whatever's in the environment. You're inoculating with very specific bacteria that are going to do the work. Then there's a lot more research on those specific bacteria and which ones are histamine producing, which ones aren't. Right. A lot of the dairy producing ones can produce histamines as a side business, a side hustle. Hey, want to buy some histamines? It depends on the ferments. For somebody who's coming to see me one-on-one, then we talk about going for a long ferment that is 6 or more weeks and starting with just the brine of a soil-based ferment. That's generally a little bit easier and better on the system for somebody who has a histamine trouble.
Cool. Yeah. Amazing. This has been a fascinating conversation. Luka's wealth of knowledge. You can find her resources online. So you're launching this new course. What's the domain?
It is actually all through my website, lukasymons.com. The program's called Real Food Reset. I'm talking about it nonstop from here till eternity.
All right, excellent. And of course, she will be one of our featured presenters at Calgary Fermentation Festival. Her sessions are always so well enjoyed. And you're going to be diving into sauerkraut, which someone might think, sauerkraut, pretty easy, got that. And if you already do, she's going to take it to even more depth, how you can chase flavors and how you can customize, really create a sauerkraut to support your specific health condition. Love this idea, love this concept. And she also teaches here regularly at Light Cellar. We got the new class calendar.
The first one is a gut one. It's October 27th.
Yes, there it is. So she's got a whole series. The first one on the gut, which is, the depth that we've just been talking about, and so much more in terms of. It's probably one of the biggest health complaints that branches off into so many other areas, even a lot of health conditions. We interviewed Tracy Reed, and that was kind of the core of what she was talking about. You might think you might have X, Y, and Z, but you have no idea that actually the root cause is in the gut. So regardless of where you're at in your health journey, this is the place to start, and Luka's your guide. So thanks, guys, for tuning in, for watching. And again, if you're watching the replay, post any comments, questions down below. We'll definitely catch those, and love to hear from you. Any kind of last final words from you?
Go play with your food.
Yes, and Jerv, just eat real food.
Oh my God. For all the days. Thanks for having me in, friend.
Yeah, for sure.
You're
awesome.
Right.
Cool.
Ciao.